Hey, Pro Jen, welcome back to the Kristen Hawkins Show. I'm starting off today's podcast with some huge news. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are calling to defund Planned Parenthood via DOGE, the new Department of Government Efficiency. Unbelievable. This is why I'm wearing my Defund Planned Parenthood shirt. I've got my sign behind me. So last week, Vivek and Elon came out in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, sorry about that. And they started detailing how they thought they were going to cut government spending and create efficiency in the government. In their op-ed, they actually listed that Planned Parenthood, they said DOGE will help end federal overspending by taking aim at the $500 billion plus in annual federal expenditures that are unauthorized by Congress or being used in ways that Congress never intended. They listed the Corporation of Public Broadcasting and $1.5 billion for grants to international organizations, and then to nearly $300 million to progressive groups like Planned Parenthood. That's massive. We have been talking about this in the pro-life movement since, we started Students for Life 18 years ago. And a lot of folks kind of never really believed that, seeing Planned Parenthood defunded was going to be a thing. It is happening. It's literally happening. And by the way, it's happening by someone, Elon Musk, who isn't even 100% pro-life. I think he's against abortion after a baby can survive outside of the womb, which makes this whole thing even awesomer. Okay, so let's break this down, because today I want to make a comprehensive case for why Planned Parenthood must be debarred and defunded. And I'm going to explain what debarred is and why they should go fund themselves. You chuckled? Good job. Okay, so this is for you when you get into all these conversations online, when you're going to be in conversations with your family over Thanksgiving and Christmas break. I want you to have all the facts. So I have spent a few hours today gathering up as much as I possibly could. I could have gone on for days. There is so much out there about Planned Parenthood and evil they commit, but I tried to take the most recent samples, most recent videos that you can have, and we'll put them up on screen because I want this to be a podcast that you can refer back to, because this is going to be a conversation that we're going to be having for the next several months as President Trump is sworn in as new president, as DOGE becomes an actual entity, maybe with staff, who knows how that's going to work out. And as we try to, move Congress and move the executive to finally defund Planned Parenthood, really fulfilling President Trump's vision of saying abortion shouldn't be federal. Okay. So let's start by talking about Planned Parenthood's business model. And I'm going to start with their latest annual report. Now, these are self-reported numbers. Remember, we don't have, and I've talked about this before, we don't have a national abortion reporting law. And Planned Parenthood is kind of like a quasi-governmental agency because they get so much of our damn money. But they get to report their numbers when and where they want to. So some years we get an annual report on time. Sometimes they just happen randomly. It's usually like at a Friday night when I'm like away, and it always comes out. So, and this is all self-reported. So they kill babies for a living. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some fibs in the annual report, but let's go get into it. So in their latest annual report, which detailed the 2021-2022 year, Planned Parenthood admitted they killed 392,715 babies. This was their highest abortion number ever in their history of the organization, meaning that they now commit about 40% of all abortions in the United States. This number, I know it sounds like a lot, and it is, but I think sometimes when we talk about big numbers, people lose sight of what it is, right? It kind of just sounds so crazy. Think about it this way. Every 80 seconds during the course of a day, one baby dies at Planned Parenthood. That's 1,076 babies a day dying at Planned Parenthood every 80 seconds. This is why we've refused to stop talking about Planned Parenthood. They are the nation's largest abortion vendor. No one has a bigger market share of the abortion industry than Planned Parenthood. It's their top priority. Abortions made up 97.1% of all of their pregnancy services according to their annual report. If you remember a couple years ago, after Cecile Richards, who President Biden just awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I think she has brain cancer. So I think they're giving her an award because she's not doing well. The Catholic president of the United States of America gave this presidential award to a woman who presided over the deaths of literally millions of babies when she was president of Planned Parenthood. Just think about that. That's going to be an interesting confession that President Biden's going to have to make. But when Cecile Richards left, and she kind of left because there was a lot of controversy because my friend David Daleiden, his organization Center for Medical Progress, exposed Planned Parenthood for killing babies and then selling their bodies for profit. And it was like kind of big deals in 2015. So after she left, they actually hired another president, Dr. Leanna Wen, who is a doctor in the Baltimore area. And she didn't last very long at Planned Parenthood. And one of the reasons she said she was let go of Planned Parenthood, now the new president is Alex McGill Johnson, is because she wasn't pro-abortion enough. Like, she was pro-abortion, but she didn't want that to be the only thing Planned Parenthood did. And when she left, she said that was one of the big reasons that she wanted to do other things, but Planned Parenthood really wanted to talk about abortion. So we often hear this justification where people say, okay, Planned Parenthood killed nearly 400,000 babies, as if that's like not reason enough to put every single Planned Parenthood abortionist in jail. But, Kristen, they do good services. They do some good services and we need them. It's a completely illogical statement for folks to make because there is no good that Planned Parenthood can do to make up for killing 400,000 babies. I mean, think about, Nazi Germany and after the Weimar Republic and the rise of Nazi Germany, you could probably make an argument that, Hitler coming to power and the Nazis coming to power, maybe they did good things. I don't know. Like, the good things would be like build good roads and infrastructure. But would any of us say, well, the Nazis weren't all bad. Hitler wasn't all bad. He did some good things. No, we're all like, no, Hitler and the Nazis were evil and needed to be wiped off the face of this earth because they're genocidal maniacs. So the argument doesn't make sense. But some people are like, okay, they do some good stuff. Interestingly, I want to point out their preventative care visits fell by 31%, according to their last annual report from their previous annual report. Their pap smear tests fell by 13.5%. Their cancer screenings fell by 1.4%, and their adoption referrals fell by 4.5%. Yet, their last annual report, 2021-2022, they reported making $2.1 billion in total revenue and ending the year with $2.5 billion in net assets. Planned Parenthood Federation America is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Somebody is making a shit ton of profit. Where are they getting all this money? Well, now that you ask, a lot of it's coming from us. In fact, we, the taxpayers, give Planned Parenthood about 34% of their overall revenue. According to the last annual report that they gave us, it was $699.3 million, almost $2 million a day. Let's do the math on that. I'm going to pull up my little calculator here because we're just having a friendly conversation. I do this on campuses sometime. $2 million a day they get from you and I. They kill 1,076 babies. So they're roughly getting about $1,858 for every baby they kill from us every single day. Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. They get their money from us, folks. It's unbelievable. Now, my friends at Live Action, a number of years ago, in 2018, they had done, one of their investigative journalists had done a report using the several years of Planned Parenthood's annual reports. And they kind of wanted to compare their good services, their abortion services, and whether they were going up or going down. So today, when I was putting together this little comprehensive case for you, I remember that article. So I wanted to go back to it because I thought I had some good data. And I think we'll put out some of these charts on on the screen so you can see it, because I think it's a great resource piece for us. Now, according to their 2018 annual report, Planned Parenthood was serving about 4% of women in America of reproductive age. Their percentage of contraceptive services actually declined. There was a decline from January 2014 to January 2018 of 34%. The estimated number of unattended pregnancies that they reported that would have been like averted because of their contraceptive services actually dropped 22.33%. From January 2014 to January 2018. This is kind of a loose number. They try to say like, this is how many unintended pregnancies we avert by giving out contraceptives. Yeah, that number went down. Yeah, during that time, the federal funding went up. Makes sense of that. Also, if you look for the past, there was a 10-year kind of exam done of, once again, their annual reports and these good services. So from 2006 to 2016, their breast exam services declined nearly 62%. From 2006 to 2016, Pap smears decreased by 74%. From 2006 to 2016, cancer screenings plummeted 67%. Same time period, contraceptive services dropped by over 32%. The organization's overall services decreased nearly 10% from 2006 to 2016. That's crazy. That's crazy. In fact, this is an interesting number because this number is actually held steady, even though we're now, I know, Kristen, we're in 2024. Planned Parenthood lost 700,000 patients, dropping 23% of patients from 2006 to 2016. They were at 3.1, 2016, they were at 2.4 million. The last estimate I've seen was like they served like 2.1 million. So that's actually even continued to go down. Yet, during this time period, their market share of abortions went up. So this chart, remember I told you earlier, according to 2021, 2022 report, we believe it's about 40% of all abortions they commit. During this study's time period, and they started in 2000, went to 2016, they have a market share calculation for how many abortions that they committed versus what was the share. So they want 2000, they were committing 15% of all abortions in our country, Planned Parenthood. Fast forward, 2016, 34.6%. And now we're at 40%. While all their other services decreased, abortions increased at Planned Parenthood. They actually increased. And when you look at money, you think, oh, what's the correlation of money? Did Planned Parenthood really just do more abortions because they need more money? No. They make more money than they give out and commit more abortions. So from 2006 to 2016, overall taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood increased by 61%. More money, more dead babies. That's the argument I often hear on college campuses, like, if we just funded Planned Parenthood more, if we just gave these people more money, they would do more contraceptive services. There would be less unattended pregnancies, less abortions, Kristen. Why are you so stupid? Well, because the facts kind of have a funny way of proving the opposite to be true when it comes to Planned Parenthood. From 2006 to 2016, they increased their taxpayer funding by 61%. Private donations also increased by 106%. Meanwhile, their abortions continued to go up. They went from 289,000 dead babies in 2006 to 321,000 in 2016. And today, we're almost 400,000 abortions. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And they're getting profits. So remember, they are a nonprofit organization. So they should really not be like, I run a nonprofit organization. I like to be in the black at the end of the year. Yes, that's very good. I can sleep at night because I have 100 full-time pro-life missionaries. I have to pay their salaries and their health care, and their families depend on that, right? And also 1,500 Students for Life groups that we have to keep on the ground, on campuses, changing minds, helping moms, right? But if I end the year with like millions and millions of dollars in the bank, my bosses, my board of directors will look at me and say, Kristen, why aren't you spending this money? Why aren't you saving more babies? there's a point where it's like, why are you saving all this cash for? Do you not know what you need to do? That's Planned Parenthood every year. Every year they continue to have excess revenue. So profit for a nonprofit of over $100 million. Over $100 million. Despite all of this, we have even more arguments that we hear on campuses, that we hear with our family members, that Planned Parenthood needs more of our money. They don't need any more of our money. There's documented evidence that Planned Parenthood, the more money you give them, the more abortions they commit. There's documented evidence that they're like, oh, we only commit 3% of abortions. That's a lie. Even the Washington Post admitted that's a lie. There's evidence that they lie about their services. When the Center for Medical Progress came out and exposed Planned Parenthood for haggling over the body parts of babies they were aborting, Cecile Richards went on national TV and said that they did mammograms. Planned Parenthood doesn't do mammograms. Then there was like a fundraising campaign, I think, to bring like one mammogram machine to one Planned Parenthood location so they could say they did it. There's documented evidence that they also fund their abortion activities. They don't keep the money separate, even though we're supposed to have a Hyde Amendment that says no federal funding of abortions. Even though money can go to an abortion vendor, they're not allowed to be like using the money to like actively dismember the babies. They can use it to pay for like the parking lot and keep the lights on, building, but that's supposed to be good enough. There's documented evidence that Planned Parenthood literally has abortion quotas. Abby Johnson, former Planned Parenthood director, talked about how they would get in trouble if they didn't commit the number of abortions that corporate thought they needed to commit to keep their profit margins in place. That's not an organization just like helps women on the side. That's a business. It's a business. It's unbelievable. There's evidence that they have poor standards of care for women. They've had to shutter a number of abortion facilities. Americans United for Life did a whole report a few years ago, Unsafe, documenting all of these cases, not in every state, but in cases where they could get FOIA requests entered and returned of unsterile equipment, not getting rid of medical papers of their patients correctly, like instead of shredding them, just throwing them away. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, let's talk about something else that Planned Parenthood does. It's not always in their annual report. It's in a second annual report. It's called, Planned Parenthood Action Fund. That's their 501c4 organization. Something else Planned Parenthood does, even if everything I said you don't care about, even if you're kind of pro-choice like Elon and you're like, well, maybe I don't care about the number of abortions. Now, Elon does care because he's very concerned about the lack of birth rates in our country, right? And how our birth rate has plummeted and how he believes the greatest threat to civilization. I agree, Elon. Let's make a deal, okay? However, but even if you weren't moved about the number of babies or the fact that they get more of our money and they kill more babies, they don't reduce unintended pregnancies, even if you haven't been moved by my numbers, my stellar numbers about how their quote-unquote good services have gone down, even if you haven't been moved about just the sheer number of dollars we give them, maybe you're not a libertarian, you don't care, you think money grows on trees, I don't know. All of that. If you are somewhat conservative or maybe aren't down with the Democratic Party's abortion on demand, all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason agenda, taxpayer funded and no medical conscience rights for healthcare workers. Yeah. If you're not down with that whole thing, you should be disturbed by this next fact. The next fact is Planned Parenthood is one of the biggest players today in the Democratic political machine. They spent $50 million that we know about in 2022. In 2020, it was $45 million. This year, we think, according to what they said before Election Day, they were spending about $40 million again on canvassing programs, phone banking, advertising campaigns to elect Kamala Harris and Democrats. This is my biggest argument on Capitol Hill. I was just on Capitol Hill lobbying a number of legislators about why we need to take action against chemical abortion pills, which are the complete opposite of the Make America Healthy Again agenda, and why we must finally defund Planned Parenthood. This is my argument to a lot of folks on Capitol Hill who kind of want to keep their job. Is if you continue to fund Planned Parenthood and you're a Republican, it doesn't even matter if you're like a pro-choice Republican. If you are a Republican Planned Parenthood is going to come after you. And by not defunding them, you continue to allow them to attack you. Because the more taxpayer dollars they have, the bigger they get, the bigger lists they get, the more fundraising lists they get, which then gets hit up for political donations, which actually grows their political power. It's not like, oh, well, they do this, killing babies over here, but then on the side, it's all together. Next topic, Planned Parenthood's crimes. So if you weren't moved by the first segment, I'm going to give you some more facts, and we're going to watch some videos together. Some of these videos are kind of long, but I want to refresh your memory because they were a while ago, and some of them were like pre-COVID. And I know sometimes we forget, like, what happened before the whole world turned upside down thanks to Anthony Fauci and COVID. So I want to watch some of these videos with you, and I want to remind you of what we're talking about when we're talking about Planned Parenthood. So this is an organization, once again, kills about 400,000 babies every year. They commit the largest share of abortions in our country, 40%. They get about $700 million from you and I to do it. And the more tax dollars they get, the more abortions they commit. And all their good services all go down. But that doesn't convince you. Oh, and they fund Democratic politics. If that doesn't convince you, let's talk about the crimes they commit. I'm going to first play you a video from 2015. This was the first video that my friend David Delighted and his staff at the Center for Medical Progress put out, exposing a multi-year sting where David and others really they infiltrated the abortion movement, learned everything about fetal remain procurement, set up a fake company, and then approached Planned Parenthood leaders about selling the babies they were aborting to their new company. And then had the Planned Parenthood haggle over the prices of the parts of babies they were going to sell. This is called human trafficking, just FYI. Let's watch this video. President of the Medical Directors Council of Planned Parenthood Federation for America. So this isn't just some like rando abortionist. She's like a top tier abortionist in the entire Planned Parenthood Federation.
What would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of...
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you're used to paying?
Okay. I don't think so. I would like to know what would make you happy. What would work for you?
Well, in negotiations, the person who throws out the figure first is at a loss, right? So.
No, I don't look at it that way. I know you want to play that game. I get it, but I want
low ball because I'm used to low things from.
You know what? If you low ball, I'll act pleasantly surprised, and you'll know it's a low ball.
Okay.
What I want to know is what would work for you. Don't low ball it.
Okay.
Tell me what you really.
$75 a specimen.
Whatever we could procure, they would get a certain percentage. The main nurse was always trying to make sure.
Now, this is a whistleblower at one of these procurement agencies where she was hired to extract the cells from the babies.
To make sure that we got our specimens. No one else really cared, but the main nurse did because she knew that Planned Parenthood was getting compensated, so she wanted to make sure that everything was going great for us, that it was going great for them, and for us, and it was going great for them.
And are we agreed that $100 would keep you happy?
Well, let me agree to find out from other affiliates in California what they're getting. And if they're getting substantially more, then we can discuss it again.
Yes.
And if this is in the ballpark, then that's fine. If it's still low, then we can talk about it. I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There was one instance where I know that one of the girls was working at the clinic, and she was anti-abortion, but I'm not sure why she was working there. And she knew that I communicated with the staff, like, I need this specimen so I can get this, and there were times she would always get rid of it before I could. And I would always ask her, I'm like, hey, I just told you I needed that. And she's like, oh, I forgot. And she did it on purpose all the time. And I went to the manager, I'm like, hey, this girl keeps throwing away my specimen. And she's like, oh, let me talk to her. And I remember her talking, she's like, we need them here, like, you need to let them have their specimens. But she was pretty adamant about it. She was trying to tell the staff, like, you need to listen to the text, like, you know, Planned Parenthood needs compensation. The harder and the more valuable the tissue, the more money you get. So if you can somehow procure a brain or a heart, you're going to get more money than just, like, chorionic villi or umbilical cord. That's basically what it is. So that, I guess that's an incentive to try and get the hard stuff, because they get more money. So I remember my first day, I was at the Concord Clinic, and it was very early in the morning. I was with one of my trainers, and I walk in, I meet the staff, and I look over in the corner, and there's a little light tray with pie dishes on it. I'm like, okay. And then I see someone come in with a bottle of something, and there was blood in it. I'm like, okay. And then they went over to the sink, and they emptied it out in a strainer and put it on the pie dish and lit it up, and I'm like looking like, what's going on? And my trainer comes over, and she puts on gloves, and she grabs some tweezers, and she's picking the parts away from the vaginal tissue. And I've never had anxiety before this at all. So I'm looking, and I don't know what's going on. I had no idea this was what was going to be happening, especially my first day. And she has tweezers, and she's like, okay, well, this is the head, this is the arm, this is a leg. And then she hands them over. So, oh, here you go. Can you show me some of the parts I just showed you? And I grabbed the tweezers. I'm like, because I didn't want to lose this job. I didn't know. I was already stoked to get it. So I did what she said. And the moment I took the tweezers, I put them in the dish. And I remember grabbing a leg, and I said, this is a leg. And the moment I picked it up, I could just feel, like, death and pain. Like, I've never felt that before. Like, shoot up through my body. And I blacked out, basically. They got the smelling salt. I woke up in the recovery room, and looking around, I was really embarrassed, who faints to their first job. And when nurses looks at me, it's like, oh, you're new, huh? I'm like, yeah, don't worry, it still happens to a bunch of us. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, some of us don't ever get over it. And I remember leaving that day, like, what have I got myself into?
So that was Holly discussing her first day, learning how to extract cells and samples from aborted babies. Now, this is David. You'll hear him. He's actually in a POC lab, products of conception lab, where they're putting together pieces of the baby to make sure, one, they've got all the baby parts and placental tissue out of the mother so it doesn't lead to infection. And then now they're discussing how they're going to prepare all these body parts for procurement.
These are intact kidneys, yes. So if somebody needed...
Because if I looked at that, I'd be like, that's good to go.
Oh, yeah.
That's like 21.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Yeah, you could start a neural cell culture from this neural tissue right here.
Like, would someone want that?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Someone would definitely.
So even at 11 weeks, even though it's really early, because I know that's when we talked about.
This is neural tissue that people could take and look, and you see how it's still connected through the spinal cord back there. If you
we just send that all together, and they pick it out.
You could actually, yeah. Yeah, some people prefer that actually because it keeps it a little more protected. Yeah, that 11.6 was pretty good. There was there was like 3 or 4 samples we could have taken out of the 11.6, so that would be if we were doing like 50 to 75 per specimen, that would be like 200, 300, right? And we'd be comfortable with that. But like it's like stuff like this, like we don't want to be like just a flat fee of like 200 and then it's like
no, and I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it. It's really just about
if anyone were ever to ask them, well, what do you do for this $60? How can you justify that? Or are you basically just doing something completely egregious that you should be doing for free? I think for affiliates, the end of the day, they're a nonprofit. They just don't want to. They want to break even, and if they can do a little better than break even and do so in a way that seems reasonable, they're happy to do it. I think this is definitely to be continued.
Definitely.
There was more. There was actually a longer video of Dr. Nugatola haggling while she was eating her salad over the prices of the individual baby parts, describing how she committed late-term abortions to get better samples for her procurement services. So that kicked off all of these videos in 2015. It kicked off a national outrage. At the time, Republicans were like, yes, we're going to defund Planned Parenthood, maybe. And then we failed to do it. There was a select committee, a panel, investigative panel that was created, the House of Representatives. I'm going to share with you some of their findings, but nothing really ever happened. I'm going to fast forward it, though, to some stuff that came out this March. So this actually came up in the election season because Kamala Harris, as Attorney General of California, she authorized SWAT agents with guns, weapons drawn, to enter David DeLion's apartment in California and take all of his video footage that hadn't been released yet, because her friends and her campaign sponsors were Planned Parenthood. A judge just this year, this is like 2015, 2016, this happened. Just this year, finally let some of this footage go live and said that, it can be for public consumption. So I'm going to share this with you because this is another Planned Parenthood official, doctors in Houston, the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere, talking about how they are manipulating abortion procedures and can manipulate abortion procedures to basically ensure they don't violate the partial birth abortion ban. So they just pull off a leg real quick at the last minute. So they're at a conference, an abortion vendor conference, and they're kind of talking about, David has already gone to them, has already met with them, offered them money. And so she's thinking, wow, every time she's killing these babies, she can make more money.
Yeah, I have like a leg for you. I'm like, oh shit. If other people were to hear me, they'd be like, you are evil.
isolate it and sell you the vials rather than give you the entire tissue. And I'm just like, are you serious?
It's funny because ever since, I think I remember it was like 6 months or a year ago you told me about the proposition. And so now every time I do a DNA, I'm like, oh, there's some lung.
Yeah, you already know, huh?
Like, I can, like, I'm like, because I'm I'm telling you.
I'm down. No, I'm excited.
You told me about the proposition. And so now every time I do a DNA, I'm like, oh, there's some lung.
Yeah, you already know, huh?
I was like, where is this? I was like, where's my guy who can play with the tissue? I was like, is there like trying to sort it? And I was like, I'm like picking up more. Like, you know, they're like, well, can you show us a sample from today? And I'm like, I was like, is this a really bad day for us? And
I remember you mentioned that there was one that day.
And it was like one bad sample. It was like a 16-year-old kid.
Oh, please go on.
It was like a 16-year-old kid, so we just had to hurry up. Whereas like other days, it's like more intact, where it's like maybe only like an arm that's disarticulated. Other days, it's like more intact, where it's like maybe only like an arm that's disarticulated. Most weeks, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, anywhere between 5 and 10 samples a week. See, I mean, just between Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Wow.
Typical. And that's what I was telling you. Like we like 30 to 50 is like a good number for the month. Like easy.
Easy. Okay. Wow.
See?
No, that's phenomenal. I mean, you're going to be busy.
But he's the one that likes to play with pocket. I was like, where? You put him with Glenda. I know. I was like, no, Glenda was the one who took out the tissue for, and we were all like there, like, well, here's like the lungs, here's the kidneys, and I was like, but where's? He's like the one that does like all of this. We had 17-week twins in the freezer because we're waiting for funeral home to pick them up.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, I'm sorry, you can't see them. They were like the most intact because it was a fetal anomaly. The conjoined twins. I was like, I'm sorry, we put formalin in there, so it's all like dark white. It's not clear. It's not like something you can see. And he goes, oh, but I was like, but it's really cool though. There's like 3 legs and like 2 spinal cords. And
I'd be
like,
down to see that. That would be pretty cool to like.
but like it was different because I was like, I know you're not the tissue guy, so it's not the same as when you're like, hey, look. We're a little bit different than other providers.
Different is good. I hate mainstream. It just seems so disingenuous. I'm just like, why am I listening?
And I'm like, yeah, I have like a leg for you. I'm like, oh shit. If other people were to hear me, they'd be like, you are fucking evil.
Yeah, Tram, you are fucking evil. So that video footage came out recently during the election after the judge in New York was like, yeah, Kamala Harris illegally took this stuff and she shouldn't do that. No one really cared because it was during the campaign. Then a new scandal comes out. So that was all during the 2014-13 area when David was getting all this information. Then just last week, a new video drops from David Daleiden and Center for Medical Progress. Check this one out.
Planned Parenthood sells viable, healthy aborted babies who could survive outside the womb to the University of California for experiments, according to further California public records documents that we are now exclusively reporting. I'm David Daleiden with the Center for Medical Progress, and for this story, I'm joined by our new associate reporter, Elise Ketch.
Previously, we told you about Planned Parenthood's flagrantly illegal contractual arrangement to sell so-called proprietary aborted fetuses to UC San Diego for the valuable consideration of owning the intellectual property and patent rights developed from experiments on the body parts.
Let me just stop here. You might go, well, what's different? In the other videos from 2015 that were released, they were talking about $50, $75, $100 a specimen, part of a child. Why are they doing this? Well, in 2015, when the U.S. House of Representatives convened the Select Investigative Panel, Planned Parenthood came out of October of 2015, October 13 actually, and said don't worry, they didn't need to be investigated because they were no longer going to accept financial reimbursements for the cost of fetal tissue donation. They had an actual statement about it. And then the Republican chairman was like, well, this is a good tangible result of our efforts. They didn't get punished for human trafficking or illegally selling the parts of babies and lying to women and making a profit, charging women for abortions, and then going back and making more money after they were selling the body parts. And the women weren't even being told this. They weren't getting free abortions. They were paying for their abortions. And so they were double dipping with their death, right? So why now it's a little different. So now they're not charging for money. This is what struck me about when I was reading this last night on the airplane. They're actually saying, we're not going to get cash. Don't give us cash. We got in trouble for that. Remember? We want the patent rights of the things you discover from this, meaning we want money and paid later down the road. So they're still treating these human beings like commodities to make a profit off of.
Senator Marco Rubio requested an investigation from the Department of Justice and the Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General, but neither Planned Parenthood nor the University of California has responded to the story publicly. Today, we're uncovering more horrifying realities about the aborted baby harvesting program at Planned Parenthood in Southern California, as documented in research submissions and emails from UC San Diego that we received under our ongoing public records requests. This heavily redacted research plan, submitted to the UCSD Ethics Review Board and approved in 2018, states the project will harvest fetuses up to 6 months old from subjects undergoing elective surgical pregnancy termination at Planned Parenthood and who are carrying viable, non-anomalous fetuses. That means that these 6-month-old prenatal babies are healthy, their mothers are healthy, and they are old enough to survive outside the womb with proper medical care.
The research plan even states that they will verify evidence of fetal heart activity by ultrasound immediately prior to the forceps extraction abortion. This means that the baby is alive while they are being torn out of the mother. And this plan calls for harvesting from up to 2,500 abortions. That's 2,500 cases of a mom and a dad with a baby ripped out early and killed for organ harvesting.
2,500 babies killed and dissected for body parts.
Pissed yet? On board with defunding Planned Parenthood, telling them to go fund themselves. Like, that's like the nicest thing I could say about them. So they got smart. They couldn't take money, but now they're going to do something different and get the patent rights. And this was from 2018. And remember, we had this committee in the House of Representatives, and there was like a vote to defund Planned Parenthood in the House. It passed at one point, failed in the Senate because we didn't have 60 votes to break the filibuster. But the select committee basically did nothing. All it did was, well, we got them to stop collecting cash. But now they get patent rights. Let's look at some other scandals that Planned Parenthood has had over the years. I don't think I should have to convince anymore. I think the podcast should be over because they kill babies and are dismembering them. Late-term babies that could survive outside of the womb, they are killing them. While their hearts are beating, they're ripping them apart. In fact, the video and the new report that just came out last week from CMP is even more frightening when you look at the medicine they were giving the mothers to induce contractions, where it's like 50 milligrams, but they were giving her like 400 milligrams and telling her she can't leave the clinic. And it's very clear, if you kind of read between the lines, they're trying to get fully formed babies to come out of these women. So they don't actually have to rip them apart because they get better tissue samples that way. But let's look at these other things that Planned Parenthood has a long record of doing. Because, Father Frank Pavone, there's a famous kind of quote in the pro-life movement: if you can't practice vice virtuously, if you kill babies for a living, you probably do a lot of other bad stuff too. So they illegally took COVID stimulus money. So in 2020, we learned that 38 Planned Parenthood locations applied for and received $80 million in coronavirus stimulus loans. Now, because they're part of a billion-dollar corporation, they were actually not allowed to apply. The coronavirus Paycheck Protection Program was for small nonprofits, for small businesses during the pandemic. They actually openly acknowledged that they were ineligible to receive funds, yet they got $80 million of stimulus funds and never have been forced to pay it back. Okay, it's kind of fraud. Medicaid fraud. So Medicaid is Title 19. It's health care for people who can't afford health care. So Alliance Defending Freedom, our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom, have put together, and for a number of years, we're putting together an annual audit of Planned Parenthood's Medicaid fraud. So I'm going to put this up. There's a link here. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. The last one I could find, and maybe they did another one, I just didn't find it. Like I said, I only spent a couple hours kind of putting together a case for you, but I could have been doing this for days. So in 2015, while all this David DeLine, Center for Medical Progress, undercover research was coming out. ADF came out and said, wait a minute, not only did they kill babies and they're selling them for profit against the law, they're also committing Medicaid fraud. At the time, they said there were 45 known external audits or other reviews of Planned Parenthood's financial data and practices, 2 in California, 1 in Connecticut, 1 in Illinois, 2 in Louisiana, 1 in Maine, 7 in New York, 2 in Texas, 3 in Washington, and 26 in Wisconsin. Lots of Democrat states there. Nearly every single one of those 45 audits found overbilling, fraud. These 45 audits found numerous improper practices, resulting in significant Title XIX Medicaid overpayments of nearly $8.5 million to Planned Parenthood affiliates. In combination with a $4.3 million settlement in the Reynolds False Claims Act lawsuit, auditors and investigators specifically identified Planned Parenthood affiliates as a source of at least $12.8 million taxpayer dollars in waste and potentially fraudulent overbilling and penalties. Furthermore, 57 federal audits of state family planning programs by HHS found over $121 million in overbilling, yielding a total of over $1.29.7 million in overbilling based on just the audits alone. What were they overbilling for? ADF's report lists 9 different things they did. Billing and being reimbursed by Title IX agencies for medications or services in connection with abortion procedure in violation of the Hyde Amendment. Meaning there used to be a Hyde Amendment. Hopefully we'll get it back this year with Republicans taking the trifecta, which explicitly bars taxpayer dollars from going to abortion. You can give money to Planned Parenthood, but they can't use that actual. That's all kind of. It's fungible, but they're not technically allowed to use it just for they can't use it for abortion medication or an abortion specific instrument. Yeah, they were doing that. Dispensing prescription drugs, including oral contraceptives, without authorizing order by a physician or other approved healthcare practitioner. They also were dispensing prescription drugs to patients who have moved and not been seen for at least a year. That's dangerous. Billing in excess of actual acquisition costs or other statutorily approved costs of contraceptive barrier products, oral contraceptives, emergency contraceptives, Plan Bs. So the government saying you can bill for this amount and they bill for more. Billing for services that were not medically necessary. Let's call it abortion. Services for women, men who are already pregnant, sterilized, or postmenopausal. Billing for services that were not actually rendered. Duplicate billing for examinations and products. Incorrectly coding and billing services, inaccurate record keeping, lacking documentation support their service billed and paid, not signing medical entries. Oh, there's 10. Sorry. Failing to pay the bills for which an affiliate had already been reimbursed with taxpayer funds. What else? Well, there's also a recent undercover investigation from Friends of Project Veritas, where they replicated something that one of our former interns, Lila Rose, had done back in the day, where she had gone in and proved that Planned Parenthood was giving abortions or facilitating abortions on minors. This new video that just came out a couple years ago showed Planned Parenthood facilitating abortion of a minor in Missouri, which is interesting. Missouri had already ended abortions in their state. The Missouri Planned Parenthood officials are telling an uncle where he can go and get an abortion for his 13-year-old niece in Kansas. And even if he can't drive her, they can help her. And here's the video. I'm going to show part of the video for that.
How old is she? She's 13. Her parents don't know yet.
Yeah, so we don't do them here, but we don't do them in Missouri. It's illegal. But we do have, I can give you a packet of the 2 locations that do it in Kansas. They have people that'll come pick them up. They have people that pay for the whole thing. Yes, I would call them and tell them what the situation is. They're going to help you with that.
All within Planned Parenthood?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if the school agrees or not. We say that she was at the doctor, and we can cut off our letterhead so it doesn't even say where she was. Trust me, this is not our first rodeo.
How many times do you do this a year?
What, like abortion?
Girls coming out of the state, yes.
Oh, every day.
Every day.
Every day. Mm-hmm. Because we set up hotels for them. We set up every day. We never tell her parents anything. She's an adult in our clinics.
They actually even discuss about how he can help her get an abortion being 13, and they can do a judicial bypass. He doesn't know what it is, and they explain it to him. The Missouri AG actually used this to sue Planned Parenthood and actually went after them for a number of things, proving in 2018 physicians for Planned Parenthood openly conceded in court that for 15 years, the organization failed to comply with state law requiring doctors committing abortions to file reports when women experience medical complications from abortion. Unbelievable. Next segment. Now, I've proven to you their business model is evil and they kill babies. I've shown you all the terrible undercover stuff, just a little sampling, not all of it, but I guess a sampling of all the terrible things that they have done. Now, you will often hear me and others of Students for Life and the Pro-Life Generation talk about defunding Planned Parenthood and debarring Planned Parenthood. Why do we have to be like confusing outside of the word? Debarment is very important because debarment is something that happens when a government contractor has been proven to be fraudulent and be stealing money and not doing what they're supposed to be doing, i.e. Planned Parenthood, and they get what's called debarred, meaning they are banned from applying for federal funds from a number of years in all of the agencies. So defunding Planned Parenthood would be like a 1-year thing, and then we'd have to fight next year. If you debar Planned Parenthood, you can debar them for a number of years. I think it's like 3, 5, 10 or something like that. And that would defund them for a long time, which would be significant because if you remember in one of the undercover videos, you heard Barb Nucatola, the medical director, talking about, we just like some of our clinics just like to make a profit. Some of Planned Parenthood's, many of their clinics actually don't make profit. Some of them operate in the red, and they'll have more profitable clinics like Planned Parenthood Gold Coast there in Houston that was killing all these babies. They make a lot of profit, and because they have these affiliates, Planned Parenthood has less than 600 facilities, but it's about 70 or 80 like affiliates. So there's like groupings of centers. And so if you've got one center in your affiliate that makes all the money, the others can operate in the red. This is why our taxpayer dollars going to Planned Parenthood, what I've been telling folks, I know President Trump has said he doesn't want to sign a National Abortion Prevention Act. He doesn't want to talk about gestational limit. That would save lives. That's wrong. We should totally do it. I mean, we should ban all abortions while we're at it, but okay. However, if you defund Planned Parenthood, you're going to have to force them to either work really hard to make up for the $700 million the taxpayer funds are going to get, or they're going to have to start making decisions about shutting down these facilities, these feeder clinics that operate in the red, which in turn would save, I believe, tens of thousands of lives. So debarment is very important. That's why we say debar and defund, debar and defund, okay? Planned Parenthood, they make so much money, so much money. As I said earlier in the show, $1,859 a day. $1,859 per baby they kill, and they kill 1,076 babies a day. One baby every 80 seconds. They know how to get paid. They get paid a lot of money. They get paid money from Medicare, Medicaid. So that's, poor people. They healthcare. They get CHIP payments. They get HHS grants, Title X money for contraceptives. Even International Planned Parenthood Federation, in one report from 2019 to 2021, found that they got $2 million. International Planned Parenthood, which literally just promotes and does abortions overseas, from the Department of State, the USAID in the Department of State. Unbelievable. They have multiple income streams. And that's why debarment is so important, because you can say, okay, we want the Protect Life rule, which was something that President Trump helped champion his first term, which said they can't get a certain grant at HHS. But that was about $60 million. They were still getting another $600 million because they're getting money from all these little pockets in the federal government. They got money from the coronavirus paycheck protection plan, for God's sake. They're getting money everywhere. At one point, Planned Parenthood actually got money to eliminate the Zika virus in Florida. You know that it was a mosquito-borne virus, and they said it could have negative effects for pregnant women. They got federal grant money on that. What were they doing? Just doing more abortions in Florida? Like, how are they preventing Zika? And what expertise do they have to stop damn mosquitoes in Florida? It's crazy. So trying to explain debarment is kind of complicated. You definitely need lawyers involved. But interesting, Senator Elizabeth Warren did our job for us, because she wrote a letter not long ago in 2022 to Department of Justice, the Attorney General Merrick Garland, who will be out of there pretty soon, making the case for debarment of basically groups she didn't like. And she talked a lot about how you actually go about this, which has been very helpful. So thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Warren. You were so helpful. She wrote, agencies possess broad authority to suspend and debar individuals. So you suspend their funding first while you investigate them for debarment. Then you debar and then it would defund. So it's actually three things. So agencies possess broad authority to suspend and debar individuals and entities that engage in criminal conduct or pose a risk to the public interest. Tell me Planned Parenthood doesn't qualify for that. The Federal Acquisition Regulation, FAR, permits an agency to debar an entity if it is convicted of or receives a civil judgment for any offense indicating a lack of business integrity or business honesty. An agency can also debar an entity based on just a preponderance of the evidence for any other cause so serious or compelling a nature that affects the present responsibility of the contractor or the subcontractor. That affects. So even if you haven't been proven guilty, if there's a preponderance of evidence that you're probably guilty, they can debar you. Before or while debarment is being considered, agencies can suspend a contractor if there's adequate evidence that suspension is necessary to protect the government's interests. Agencies also have a wide latitude to link contracting companies to the misconduct of any of their employees. That was also interesting in 2015 because Planned Parenthood was like, oh, it's just our lead medical director. It's not us. Including top company executives, as long as the misconduct occurred in connection with the individual's performance of duties for behalf of the contractor or with the contractor's knowledge, approval, or acquiescence. DOGE, this is your job. Debar Planned Parenthood. I don't, there's not really an actual DOGE yet, so I don't know what the rules are going to be for that, but DOGE should lead the charge. They can have the General Services Administration, the Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services. He's like the, guys like making sure things are being done legally right. The U.S. Government Accountability Office, the GAO office. All these offices in the government could debar Planned Parenthood. They have to be suspended while we're investigating for debarment, which I have basically made the case for debarment right here on this podcast. You're welcome, DOGE. And then they get defunded. It's unbelievable. It's all right there. I want to thank you, Senator Elizabeth Warren, because it is so hard to try to explain debarment, and you just did it so beautifully for me. Elon, Vivek, give me a call. Give me a ring. I'll put everything else I'm doing at Students for Life on hold. I will commit to being in Washington, D.C. for months. My family will hate it. I will be there, and we will do this together, guys. We will defund Planned Parenthood. We'll save a bunch of our taxpayer dollars, about $700 million. We'll save tens of thousands of human lives. We'll tell Planned Parenthood to go fund themselves. And we'll fulfill one of President Trump's main campaign promises, which is to end federal involvement in abortion. It's a win, win, and win. When often do you see that in politics? Come on. All right. For the last segment, I know you're like, this podcast is going on forever. I had a lot to talk about. And like I said, I have shortened it for you. You are welcome. The last segment in this podcast, I want to talk about one more thing when we're making our case to our family and friends, online conversation about why we should defund Planned Parenthood. It always comes up. Well, where are all these women going to go? I mean, it's the same thing when we argue about making abortion illegal again, right? Well, what's the pro-life movement going to do for all these women families? We do a whole hell of a lot, way more than Planned Parenthood, by the way. We just happen to be not so great all the time in marketing ourselves and telling people what we do about it. But so do we really need Planned Parenthood? If every single Planned Parenthood in America shut down tomorrow, what would happen? What would happen? Let's go over some of the numbers. I have some of the numbers for you. So I worked at the Department of Health and Human Services. There's this thing called FQHCs, Federally Qualified Health Centers. I believe, if you're interested, used to be called findahealthcenter.hrsa.gov. HRSA is a subdivision, Human Resources Services Administration under HHS. Yep, it still works. findahealthcenter.hrsa.gov. This is a place you can enter your location, and it will tell you where you can find a federally qualified health center. Federally qualified health centers are nonprofit They get federal funding, and their job is to serve low income and rural areas. I have a feeling my hospital is probably a federally qualified health center because I live out in the middle of nowhere on purpose. Federally qualified health centers get federal funding. They're nonprofits, but they don't play in politics. So they're not as powerful as Planned Parenthood, even though there's 5,300 FQHCs that provide women's health care. There's less than 600 Planned Parenthoods. Less than 600. That's nearly 9 times as many. FQHCs operate in all 50 states. According to the most recent data in 2021, there are actually 17,890 service sites, and FQHCs look-alike facilities are either like FQHCs or they kind of operate like FQHCs, like community healthcare clinics, that can help. And I think that probably may even include some pregnancy centers because there's about 3,000 pro-life pregnancy centers, maternity homes in the country too. Don't forget about us. Go stayingwithyou.org. You can find about 5,000 resources there. FQHCs do everything Planned Parenthood does, even some things I disagree with, but they don't kill babies. And what's really interesting is if you need a service and you go to an FQHC and they don't provide it, they have to help you get a referral to somewhere. And if you don't have a ride, they have to even help you with transportation. On campuses, we sometimes will put out like, here's a list of things that Planned Parenthood does. Manual breast exam, birth control, UTI inspections, STD testing and treatment. They only treat 18% of STDs they diagnose, by the way. Pap smears, HPV testing, pelvic exams, colonoscopies, wellness exams, abortion. That's all they do. Okay, that's the list. Like, it was kind of a little short. Federally qualified health centers, manual breast exams, birth control, UTI inspections, STD testing and treatment, pap smears, HPV testing, pelvic exams, colonoscopies, wellness exams, mammograms, emergency first responder care, immunizations, diabetes screenings, glaucoma screenings, cholesterol screenings, radiological services, cardiovascular blood tests, bone mass measurement, pediatric eye screenings, pediatric ear screenings, pediatric dental screenings, child services. And I went to FQHC one time that had a podiatrist in it. I hurt my toe. It hurt. FQHCs. If every single Planned Parenthood shut down tomorrow, we would be okay. In 2021, 2022, according to the report, Planned Parenthood said they had 2.05 million clients. Still down. Remember I said earlier it was like 3.1? FQHCs during that same year in 2022 reported to serve 31 million patients. That's 15 times more people. Authentic help, not abortion. Not abortion. That means, and I'm going to find this number here. If Planned Parenthood were to be defunded and they would shut all their doors, which they won't because Warren Buffett, George Soros, other billionaire eugenicists who want to kill human beings and want there to be less human beings in the world will give Planned Parenthood more money because they're evil. But even if my dream comes true and every Planned Parenthood shuts their doors tomorrow, FQHCs would only need to see 2 more patients per week to make up the difference. And that's according to 2015 numbers, when I think Planned Parenthood was seeing about 100,000 people more. That's it. We don't need Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood kills babies. Planned Parenthood is illegally trafficking human body parts. Planned Parenthood is committing a number of other fraud and other crimes. Planned Parenthood's money should be suspended. They should be debarred and not allowed to apply for any more federal taxpayer fund or grants, and they should be defunded immediately. I want to thank you. If you tuned into this whole episode and watched this whole episode, thank you so much for watching the Kristen Hawkins Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I did a little research for you. I tried to put it together as much as I possibly could to help you in these conversations, because if all goes according to plan and Elon and Vivek mean what they say that they're going to do, DOGE is going to be kicking some serious ass, and that means kicking Planned Parenthood to the curb and telling them to go fund themselves. So we have a lot more to do, and there's going to be a lot more action items coming up. If you have not signed up for my daily text line where you get 1 text a day from me, that's it. And it's only Monday through Fridays. You get I will send you kind of the best news headline I find for the day, or some fact that I think you should see, or a video I think you should know about for your conversations, sign up for my daily text line. It's super easy. It's free, obviously. You just have to text the word Kristen. Now, the difference is you have to spell my name right. Kristan. Thank you, Mother. Text my name to this number, 53445. 53445. And if you want some more action items, go to the Pro-Life Gen shop and you can get your Defund Planned Parenthood shirt. I promise yours won't be like wrinkled, but I've had like a lot of protests over the years I've wore this at. But you can go get your Defund Planned Parenthood tee now, because I'm telling you, you're going to need it. I love to see you guys wear it at the March for Life, the National Pro-Life Summit this year, which I hope you all have signed up. We're excited. We're looking forward to selling out to National Pro-Life Summits, prolifesummit.org. It is going to be Saturday, January 25th, the day after the National Pro-Life March. I can't wait to be with you. We'll have some cool pro-life signs, Pro-Life Gen signs, maybe some Planned Parenthood messaging at the March for Life. Hope to see you there, and I'll see you next week.